Okay, the same user had a great question also about groups. One, I guess, needed confirmation that groups are gone in 1.9 and maybe is concerned about how that'll affect the sync between LDAP groups and dotCMS groups.
Right, yeah, and we addressed this a little bit earlier. Yeah, groups are gone. Roles are now hierarchical. So as we go in here and we click on our roles, as we saw before, the roles are hierarchical. You could build them, and you could build more of them under there, and you could keep going. Roles now have keys. So as far as coming from LDAP, again, the LDAP group maps to a role, and the group name would map to the key of the role. So no matter where it is in the hierarchy, that's what it keys in on.
Okay, there's a few questions came in from users concerned that with the new Lucene syntax, what about the old syntax in velocity pulls? Will that be affected? Will any of the older pulls break because of the changes?
Again, this is similar kind of answer to how will UUID affect my upgrade? Uh, the answer is yes, we are backwards compatible. We actually translate your queries on the fly, so it's a little bit better or more performant, if you would, a little bit to write the newer query syntax, but you can write the older query syntax. We convert that query for you programmatic or on the fly. We do cache those results, so it's not the end of the world, and it I mean the performance is very 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 minimal, so it's really not a big deal. We would encourage people to start as they touch their code to start updating those queries, but the older query syntax is able to be used.
Okay, maybe you already answered this one, JT, but there was another question that just came in. When we upgrade, what happens to the old groups and roles that existed in the previous version, and what has to be done with them?
Really, nothing's got to be done. When dotCMS upgrades, he runs a series of upgrade tasks for you. So, for example, I go to upgrade my dotCMS. So I download 1.9. I make a copy of my database and I install it. So this is dotCMS 1.9, which is just a copy of the 1.7 database. At this point, or Enterprise, well, Enterprise 1.7 or Enterprise 2009 as it was called, or 1.7. So I make a copy of my database. I take my assets or whatever files that I had manually put on the file system, and I drop those into 1.9. The file structure and all is the same. I hook 1.9 to this copy database, and I start. When 1.9 starts, he says, ooh, look, I'm running off an old database. And he says, I need to run these 30 upgrade tasks. And one of that he's going to do is he's going to go say, okay, what are all the I had all these. I need to create the new roles structure. Okay, so he does all that, and he says I need to get the old roles, and I need to and groups, and I need to migrate them. So basically, what he does is he'll take your old groups, he'll create a role out of that group, and then he'll take all the roles that were in him, and he'll place those roles under that role. So the group becomes a role with a bunch of roles underneath it. Because again, the groups were nothing but collections of roles. So in this respect, it was hierarchical. It's just that you only had the top level of the group and then the roles underneath it. And of course, roles could stand on their own as well. So we just take the group, we make it into a role, and we stick all the other roles underneath them. The other thing in the old system is groups were tied to the tabs that you saw up here. But as you see now, as I click on roles, I could specifically control the tabs. Like right now, these are all the different tabs that are available. If I wanted to make a new tab, I can give it a name, and then I can select the different tooling that can go in there. For example, we can make, an admin test tab, and I can add inside of it, if I wanted, that new query test tool that I was talking about earlier. We could save this guy. Now, if I wanted to give the template manager that tab, I click it. So now the template manager, if I were to save this, the only tab that he'll see when he logs in is the admin tab, and the only tool that would be available underneath it would be the query test tool. Again, this used to be much more complex in the older system. It was all tied to groups, and you can have like your own on the user. It's all manageable right here from this nice little roles manager now.
Another great question came in, and I'll field this one, JT. Once again, my name is Dean Gonzalez. I'm the training and technical support manager here. I also manage the documentation website. When will documentation for 1.9 be ready? And the answer to that is our goal is for our boot camp, which is in the middle of April, April 15th. We are going to have the core of all of our documentation for 1.9 up, and we have documentation versions, so there will still be the 1.7 version will be preserved, and we will have the new 1.9 version released. So at least all of the main core components of the documentation that is currently there will be up and ready, and we'll be trying, that'll be our goal date there in the middle of April. Thank you for that question. Another question that came in concerning, I guess maybe once again about the macros and how velocity is affected or maybe improved. How about image uploading and image resizing? Are any of those macros improved or changed or work a different way in 1.9?
They work similar to the way they used to. We actually did do work on the image resizer. It has there's some new functionality that exists there. For the most part, it does what it used to. I think a little bit better than what it used to. But it'll work just like, I mean, your older calls will still work. It'll support, slash resize, slash, question mark, whatever, W equals for width or height or whatever.
Okay, a great question coming in concerning front-end content submission. Will there be any change to front-end content editing similar to front-end content submission in the future, JT?
Yeah, no, there will be. Not in 1.9. We don't it The submit content macro actually has been greatly improved. In fact, the form builder is a perfect example of that. The front end content submission really, it's all Dojo now. It's much prettier than it used to be out of the box. It's much easier to style and control now, and a lot more control of what's happening. But it just allows you to add content. As far as editing content, we will see that hopefully in 2.0 and as we move forward here. But as far as 1.9, we didn't create the ability for that guy to be able to edit. For what it's worth, it's not that it's really that hard. I mean, if someone in the community wanted to tackle that, we'd be more than welcome. Actually all the tooling's there to make it happen. It's just, as you can see, we've done a ton of stuff with 1.9, and if we worked till we had everything we wanted, we'd never release. So at some point we need to draw the line.
A question that came in about form field validation. Is it still client side or has validation for forms moved server side?
But both in this case, there is a lot of there is some JavaScript form validation that is happening client side. But in addition, because now we have a lot happening server side, it's not just anymore you creating a form in your own HTML and just submitting to the form handler, right? That's what it was before. I mean, essentially, the old guy was the equivalent of just a form handler, a form processor. Now, I mean, this is built into the system, so our guy does check to make sure that the content that's being added is actually valid. So you're going to get both client-side validation, and it's very nice. Again, it's all integrated with. It's got a lot of JavaScript stuff down there, and it'll read the fields that aren't good and put little warnings, the little yellow symbol by them, and so forth, and error symbols by them. But you will get both client and server-side validation, which is great. You want both.